All right, can you guys hear me well? We're good to go? Thumbs up? All right. All right, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to how to find or how to purchase your first multifamily home or property. My name is Annabelle Pacheco, and I am an investor and a real estate broker, been in business for 24 years, and I am part of a global real estate company named eXp Realty. My goal really on this call and every week, this is just a call that I do every week, is to share with you guys the steps that I took to purchase my first multifamily deal. I also bring in guest speakers from the multifamily space to just share with us and really just expand on our knowledge. I encourage everyone to participate and ask questions. I mean, really this platform, I talk a lot and I'll share a lot, but you know what? Ask questions, interrupt. If you're going through some challenges or you've got some questions about something that you're maybe looking to do, this is a safe platform. Just ask your questions. I'm here to help. And if I don't have the right answer for you guys, I have the resources so I can connect you with the right people, if anything. I am not selling anything. I'm not offering anything. I am just, and I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing my story with everyone. So just a little bit about myself. I started in the mortgage industry in the mid 90s. I was doing a lot of refinances, and you're not going to believe it, but back in the 90s, interest rates were at 9.5%. And I was doing a lot of refinances, fixed rates at 9.5%. And so today when, we are looking at these 4.5% or even 5% interest rates, I mean, they're still very low. 2 and 3 was just, that was free money for a little, that was a little teaser, but that really wasn't the reality of the market. I think 4 and 5 is just, there's still good rates and good opportunities out there right now for you guys to take advantage. I've also was involved in a lot of rehabbing. I've purchased over 100 properties throughout my career, rehabbed, flipped these properties. And I did keep a couple 2 to 4 units. I rented those out, managed those out for some time, and pretty much just was on a cycle, right? Where you're purchasing, you're fixing, and you're flipping. And in the last, I would say, in about 2001, market was a little harder. I mean, I couldn't find really good deals. And so I thought, okay, you know what, maybe it's time to kind of just deviate. And we did. We built a restaurant from ground up, 150 capacity, and had over 15 people working there, managers, chefs, and servers. I will say we had that for about 8 years, and happiest day of my life was when I handed over the keys to the new owner. It was beyond stressful, and it allowed me to really appreciate real estate. And I love what I do, and I've been doing it now for 12 years, like just focused in representing clients in both residential and commercial real estate. And about 2015, I decided to just I had been working really hard to invest in multifamily, but it was hard, because you definitely need capital, right? Or at least I was looking for capital at that point. I was not looking to partner up with anyone. And so in 2015, I purchased my first multifamily deal, which was 34 units in Grand Prairie, Texas. And then since then, I've expanded into El Paso, Texas, 310 doors, and Houston, Texas, 180 doors. Right. So what happened, it's a great business.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Absolutely.
On your El Paso properties, how is that going over in that area?
It's going great.
You're not having any problem with people not paying and all of that? Because I'm kind of scared of that area. I wasn't sure how that's going over there.
Well, we're in a very, I mean, El Paso, again, it's where location is everything. And I know I've
Yes.
spoken about that. Location, location, location is key. And we're located very close to medical, a big medical center and hospital, and it's in a really good area. So we're not having any problems at all.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so you're rehabbing, you're flipping, you're going through this process. And after a while, it's like, oh man, like I'm still doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I just thought, okay, you know what? We've got to find a way where we have to find a way where our money can work for us, right? And it was multifamily. For me, it was, okay, I want that consistent cash flow and looking to create that generational wealth. And so here are the reasons. For me, I was looking for cash flow, and multifamily pretty much checked off all the boxes. Loan pay down availability when you have, multifamily is, as you're collecting all these rents, I mean, you're factoring in your mortgage payment, your debt service, you're factoring in taxes, you're factoring all this in. This property is paying for itself, and at the end, it's giving you money, right? So it's like, what a great opportunity to have tenants pay down that mortgage. 3, any property, I mean, you hope, right? You bank on the fact that it will appreciate over the long run. If you're doing you're doing the right research and you're making sure that this property is in an area where, for sure, if you are going to rehab it and increase its rent so that you can increase that net operating income, there's no reason why appreciation wouldn't kick in. There's no reason, because multifamily is all geared by the net operating income. That's what gives it your value. Okay. And it'll just appreciate over time. Number 4 was also the tax benefits, right? Depreciation, which allows you to expense a portion of that every year. And the 1031 exchange opportunity that you have, which allows you to defer capital gain taxes. And there's no limit. So if you happen to find a really great deal and it's an opportunity for you to upgrade, well, that's when you want to use that 1031 exchange. But I will say it makes sense if you've already identified a property. I think that it's really tough, especially in this market, if you're going to sell something that you're going to sell and then start looking for a property to 1031 exchange, it will be tough. And you just have to be prepared to really hustle to find that property. Okay. But that's the beauty of 1031 exchanges, that if you do, there you go. You can roll over that capital gain and you're not going to pay taxes on it. And you know what? And start creating, some additional capital. Any questions there? We good? Okay. So I'm gonna just kind of go over again my deal and pretty much the opportunity. It was a value add opportunity that I found in Dallas, Texas. And value add, for those of you that are not sure, and I really just put the definition there, and it's the strategy that involves buying the worst property in the best neighborhood, then increasing its net operating income, right? And the value of the property through renovation. Now, I will tell you, I don't think I bought the worst property in the neighborhood. It was a decent property in a decent neighborhood. It did need work. And again, my background in renovating and flipping homes, it was a very easy process for me. And I'm sure it's maybe not for everybody, right? But I knew by looking at this that if I invest in rehabbing it, that there's no failing of being able to increase the rents. So I purchased this property for 850,000, put a 350,000 down payment. And I do want to share with you guys that I negotiated this transaction directly with the seller. The seller was a licensed real estate agent. I'm a licensed real estate agent. I was a buyer looking to buy in Texas. And we just negotiated. We didn't need representation. And we were able to work something out where he allowed, or he was okay carrying a note for 2 years for me for the remaining balance of 500,000. So this was extremely helpful for me. I was ready to go through the loan process, but in all honesty, getting a loan is not easy. I mean, there's still a lot that you have to do. And I was just in a position where, you know what, if he's going to allow me, I didn't mind doing it. It just made sense. You're right. And I had the capital to do this. So it made sense. And it was much easier. We closed fairly quick. And I began remodeling and updating the units immediately as soon as I could. I mean, we started giving 30-day notices to tenants. And it was just great. It allowed me to go in there, work. And by year 2, I was able to refinance, pay him back, pay him off. And the property had pretty much doubled by year 2. So it was at $1.6 million. And I got myself a loan for $1 million, which pretty much gave me back my initial 350 plus more. And today's value of that property is $2.8 million. So it worked out wonderfully. I mean, if you would have asked me 7 years ago, was this exactly what I was expecting? I probably would have said no. I didn't think that the property value would increase by this much, because we were talking, this is Texas, right? It's not California, and I'm in California, and we know California prices and the values in California are very, very high and strong. And you could see, I mean, like, we could really see that appreciation, but Texas was not that way. And it just, it was just all about timing. We bought at the right time, and we had the property for for just the right timing. It's all timing in this. I wish I could do this again. And it's not that easy to find these kind of deals, but they're out there. It's just gonna, you're gonna have to, if you have to, on average, and I've spoken to a lot of investors out there, they're looking at 150 properties to make an offer on 1 or 2 of those. So it's a lot more, it's a lot more work that's like required to find something like this. And that's why I say to all of you on this call that it is important that you connect with as many groups and as many people as possible. I mean, you just never know, right? You might hit it off well with someone. You have something of value to bring to them. They have something of value to bring to you. And you know what? Maybe something nice, a good relationship and a good opportunity comes from that. And I'm part of a lot of different groups, and I encourage you guys, find those groups, go on Facebook and find, if it's multifamily, whatever it is that you are passionate about, whatever it is that you want to get yourself into, find that on Facebook. There are tons of groups, and I'm part of many groups. One, which is like a more women multifamily group, and they'll post opportunities in there. Maybe they're not 100% sure, they don't know, and they want to get opinions, and then you connect with someone. I mean, I just connected with someone that has 30 acres of land in Pocono, Pennsylvania, I believe it is, and Poconos, I think it's Poconos, and she says that this is property that's like resort. There's a lot of resorts in that area. So there's skiing, there's lakes, there's just a bunch of stuff. They were saying people from New York go to this area. And and she's not familiar with it. She thinks that it'd be nice to build a resort on there. Well, I have connections. I know people that build hotels. You know what? So again, maybe there is no deal, but what if there is a deal, right? And you guys have to get in conversations with people like this. You've got to ask. I reached out to her, send me more information, right? Give me, what big companies or businesses are out there. If it's resorts, what are the name of those resorts? Like, you want to look into it, because what if it is a good deal? So I just urge you guys to just connect and talk to people, and you guys will come across a deal that way. It's not necessarily by searching online, you'll find the deals by talking to other people. So here's a picture, 24 units, 1 bedroom, 1 bath. And this is the front building, 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bath, 10 units. And oops, let me go back there. But so anyway, any questions so far before we go into a couple of essentials that I have put together when purchasing a multifamily? Any questions?
No questions, but a statement that that's a good area. There are a lot of resorts up there. I spent a honeymoon up there, and they've rebuilt a lot of things up in that Poconos area. So it's probably a good area and good deal.
Yeah, it's very like up and coming.
Is it really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you see,
It's been like revitalized.
Yes. My brother
Okay.
used to live up there, actually. But in terms of vacationing, they have added a great deal, many things there. So I would
There's
definitely
a lot
look
of
into
restaurants now too.
Okay, so is this what would you say? Is it like for skiing? Is it for
They have skiing there as well. Snowboarding, skiing. I mean,
is there water?
Some places there are. Depends on the
There's
area.
some lakes. Yeah.
Yes.
And there's a lot of like restaurants there now. So people will spend the day skiing and then go out to like a nice restaurant.
Okay.
It's very popular with people from Philadelphia too.
Okay.
In New York, it's a hop, skip, and a jump. It's 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, I think that's what she said, about an hour and a half from New York. Okay. Well, there you go. I mean, that might be, I had not heard of the area. I wasn't familiar with it, but I saw her post and she was, asking for some help. She didn't really know. And so I connected with her and I said, tell me more about this. I have hotel developers that I work with, and maybe this is an opportunity, like share. And so she's going to give me some more information. I mean, this is what I mean, guys. It starts, there might be a lot of conversations that you have to have before the deal actually comes to life. But this is how you kind of get in, right, to a deal without having to, having it either listed. This is not on the market. This is completely off the market. And she's just trying to figure out what's the best route. Like, what should I do? How should I do this? I have no resort or hotel experience, but I own this property. What can I do? And so it's a good opportunity. She might be willing to partner up, right? Where the developer or whoever comes on board doesn't have to come in with an additional funds. Maybe she puts the land and the developer puts the work in. So this is how stuff come to life. So I recommend you guys look today when we get off this call, go on Facebook and find a group. Find a Facebook group that has, that does multifamily or whatever you are interested in. They're out there. So let's talk a little bit about essential steps or just essential items needed when purchasing multifamily. And I know you guys have heard me say this. It's a rent roll. Number one is the rent roll. Okay. Most lenders are going to require a current rent roll that's within 30 to 60 days of closing. Okay. So this is if when you're looking to buy and you're going through your loan, they're going to require this from you. Now, I'll tell you guys, I didn't go through this when I purchased the property, but when I refinanced out, I went through this and a lot more. Okay, so I've done both and I've been in both spaces. Obviously, when you're dealing directly with the seller, they don't ask you for a whole lot. And when you're dealing with a bank, the bank does. The second thing here is that your rent roll, your spreadsheet should contain information like building number, right? So if you have 2 buildings, you want to make sure that that rent roll specifies that building number 1 and building number 2. And then the units, you need to know like the unit number, if it's a 1-bedroom, if it's a 2-bedroom, how many bathrooms. I mean, and again, mine's pretty easy. I only had 1 bedrooms and I had 2 bedrooms, but there are properties out there that might have 1 bedrooms, they might have studios, they might have the 2 bedrooms, and they might have a 3-bedroom. I mean, you want to make sure that all of this stuff is detailed. Okay. You also have to include tenant names, the square footage of that unit that they're actually occupying, their move-in date, the lease commencement date, when it expires, right? Rental rate, concessions, if there's any, and then miscellaneous charges. So that this would be a very complete and thorough rent roll. All this information is needed in order for you to make a really good decision. Once you have all of this, then you're able to calculate that average in-place rent, okay? Very important here, okay, that the rent roll is going to show the actual rent that they're collecting, okay? And it's going to show market rent. And so you want to be able to test the market rent by looking at the most recent leases, right? And you want to see, okay, here's a new lease that's been signed, right? And you want to make sure that that lease, if the price went up, right, that the comparables and that lease amount that's gone up is pretty comparable in the market. Okay, and this is going to help you determine and support the market rent. Do you guys understand this so far? You're able to, by using these, you're going to use whatever new leases you have, you're able to make sure if you're within the market rents, and it'll give you an idea as well if you can maybe increase the rents a little bit more. So you want to calculate your gross potential rents by adding the market rents from vacant units to the in-place rents for the occupied ones. This is a little complicated. So you're going to take your gross potential rents, okay? Adding the market rents, you want to put your market rents to any vacant units if you have any. And then you're going to have a rent for the ones that are occupied. And that's how you're able to calculate that gross potential rent. Okay, any questions there? Okay, so number 2. Essential is the operating statements. Okay, so here, operating statements are pretty much, you want to get a minimum of 3 years. Okay, that way you're able to look at what has happened in the last 3 years on this property. It'll give you a really good detailed, just a good detailed look of, is this building producing, right? Or is this building not producing? You're going to analyze vacancies. You want to, so here's like all the negatives, right? You're going to analyze vacancies, any kind of concessions, any loss to lease. You want to determine that, like the right percentage for that 1 year, for let's say the first year, right? And then you isolate and then you explain other incomes for year 1. So you're going to really look at year 1, right? Do whatever you have to figure out the, whatever it is that they've spent on whatever vacancies or concessions or loss that they've had. Now, for example, if the property charges for parking, right? You know the fees and numbers of those spaces. So you want to make sure that monthly annual parking figures on an operating statement also make sense and that are to the appropriate tenant, right? That's additional income there. So you have to make sure that those figures are on. So here we have an operating statement. Well, you want to make sure that those figures, if they're paying for parking, are also on that rent roll. Because if we go back, I said you want to make sure you have, square footage, whatever that unit is producing, that information needs to be on that rent roll as well. Okay, and the same goes for if there's any kind of utility reimbursement, which is called RUBS, any kind of laundry fee or pet fees. Again, those are numbers that you need to put in there as well. Okay, and so are you guys aware, or does anyone here know what RUBS is? Anybody?
I do not know. I would love to find out.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know about that either. That would be good to more information.
Perfect. So let me share with you guys. So RUBS, it stands for Ratio Utility Billing Systems. And this is really, it's like the most cost-effective and fair alternative to sub-meters. So instead of you spending the money to go into a property and individually metered, right? So that they can get billed for their consumption or usage of the utilities there. We do a racial utility billing system. And how that works is pretty much you divide that amongst all the tenants, right? You're gonna pretty much take that dollar amount and you're gonna split it up. So if there's a unit that has one or two tenants, obviously they're gonna pay a little bit more. But everyone, instead of you, because there's a lot of, so let me rewind for a second. There's a lot of properties out there, multifamily, that are all bills paid. That means that your rent, if you're paying $1,400, it already includes water, electric, gas, it includes everything. You don't have to pay any additional. And this is a way for a owner to not have to carry that load, right? And when they're paying for this, believe me, they're going to take care of it a little bit better. So RUBS formula, pretty much, you take the property's total cost for water and you divide the cost over all of the residences. So billing it by a percentage of the total cost to each residence based on the square footage of the residence and the number of occupants, and sometimes also the number of bathrooms or bedrooms. So let's use my property, 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bath. Obviously, their ratio would be higher than my 1 bedroom, 1 bath. But it's just split, and then they get an additional bill. So if they have a $1,200, rent, they will pay extra, whatever that percentage is, and it's their responsibility to pay. So you don't have to pay for it. Make sense?
So if I'm understanding you correctly, a 2-bed, so if there's, just keeping an even thing, if there's 3 units and they all have the same number of people and all have the same number of bathrooms, 33 and a third divided by the 3. However, if there's one that's got a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and then the other 2 have 1 and 1, the 2-bedroom, 2-bath would pay more like 50%, and the other 2 would pay 25 and 25.
So
Am I hitting that right? I mean, because the one's the 2-bed, because one has two occupants, so
Okay.
there's a total of 4. So everybody gets 25%. So the
Pretty
one
much.
two unit gets 50.
correct.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So again, Annabelle, the understanding dividing it, but then how do you assure that that utility gets paid every month? Because if you don't pay your utilities months when they're actually in your name, they can cut you off. But here you're in this system. How does this work?
Well, no, this system is your system. You are still responsible as the owner of the property. The utility bills are under your name and your entity. You are responsible. You're allocating these additional costs to the tenants. So instead of actually going into this property and doing the work of putting meters in there, because that can be very costly and I mean, that's expensive. It's just a system that you let the tenant know ahead of time that they're responsible. And once you have like the actual square footage and the, bedroom count, then you already know from previous tenants, okay, you're going to have on an average an X amount of utility bill, like you will have a bill. Now, if they don't pay for it, it's just like any other, if they don't pay for the rent, then you have to go through the eviction process. But you, as the owner, are responsible for the utility bills. You continue to pay for the utility bills. You're just allocating this additional, the additional costs to the tenants.
So is it part,
Okay.
is it part of the bill? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It has nothing to do with their bill. So you're going to still be billed. This is
No. I meant in terms of their rent. Is it a separate item?
Yes.
Or is it included in their rent?
No, it's a separate item because every bill is every month. There's a different, you consume different amounts. So
Okay.
unless you're going to charge them just a flat fee, then it becomes all bills paid. And then that's it. Then they would pay you, $1,500. And if they consume whatever they consume, they're still going to pay you $1,500. So
Gotcha.
what I'm seeing is a lot of owners are starting to well, they've been doing this, but they're doing it even more now, and just allocating the utilities to the tenant. So it's no longer going to fall on just the owner of the property.
I see that a
This
lot.
is-
I'll be quiet. Sorry, please.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so that you're saying that this is may differ from month to month
Correct.
unless you have that flat fee. Okay.
Correct. So so my property's all bills paid. They have a flat, they pay X amount. That's it. However, you can give them that, X amount and implement. So when let's say you're going to renew their contract, right? You're going to let them know. All right. So starting in January, we're implementing the RUBS program. And, you already have an idea what their square footage is, what their bedroom count is, bathrooms, and you're going to let them know based on, past past experience, because we've had this unit rented out before. The tenants in there were paying an additional, I don't know, let's just $150. You're more than likely going to have a bill that runs between $150 to $180 a month, in addition to your rent. And then they're going to pay the rent and they're going to pay that the cost of their utilities. I hope I explained it properly.
Yes, I got it. Thank you. I understand that. Mhm.
Perfect. William, you were going to ask something or say something?
No, I was going to say that's what happens in a couple of the high rises in New York City, where they basically, for years, they covered everything. And now they separated utilities from, use of air conditioner, washes to just the lighting and, in general. So.
Yeah, I think with, the cost of things going up, we're going to see a lot more of this. They're just going to start allocating it to everybody. One person shouldn't be responsible for it all. So let me answer a couple of questions I have on the chat. So Christine, is it a hot, do you mean single family residence? You have STR rental market,
I
Christine? Yeah?
I think that was in reference to the Poconos and that there's a lot of short-term rentals,
Oh,
Airbnbs or whatever
oh,
in the Poconos.
oh, okay. However, I know this parcel of land, you cannot build single family homes on there. And that was my other question, is to find out, can you build multifamily? For, maybe you could do extended stay there as well. Or, I mean, maybe a resort, maybe a resort would be a nice thing to do. Okay, let's see here. George, I am currently located I'm in Walnut, California. I'm very close to the Inland Empire. Walnut's still LA County, but very close. Where are you, George? Okay. Okay, well, let's see here. Oh, okay. George is currently at work. He's in Yucaipa. Okay, cool. Very good. All right. So we're good with this part of the rubs? Okay. So let's go to some fixed and variable operating expenses. Okay, this is also another category that's important to determine, right? You want to determine what your fixed expenses are that will probably that do not fluctuate based on occupancy or management style. And this really would apply to your taxes, insurance, and any kind of common area utilities. And then your variable expenses would include repairs and maintenances, turnover expenses, ground maintenances, landscaping, and if you're in a place where there's snow as well. Your payroll could be variable, your management fee could be variable, right? Any kind of administrative or marketing could be variable. I mean, you could be doing something specific for maybe a few months, and then you no longer have to do that. Same with advertising. So these variable expenses really may vary depending on management style, occupancy, or the tenant profile. And I will tell you something that, at least my experience, help control the expenses was that when we purchased the property, we went in full force to fix up the property to avoid having problems. I mean, we're in California. The last thing we wanted to do is to just get bombarded with calls every single day, right? Something's broken or something's not. I mean, so many things happen. And so what we tried to do was to minimize that. And we went in and we fixed. I mean, there were some big ticket items that we had to take care of. And we took care of them to just avoid additional headaches, additional expenses, right? We really did them as capital expenditures. We went in there and just did it from the get-go. You want to obtain vendor, essential number 3, you want to look at vendor contracts. Okay, this is very important when you're analyzing those variable operating expenses, right? Because you want to know first of all, you want to look at all those vendor contracts to determine which one of these fees is variable and which one of these fees is a bit more, fixed. A lot of contracts, you probably cannot cancel, right? You either they could require a 30-day notice, or some may require termination fees if you cancel them early. So you got to take that into consideration as well. And then the amount stated in the agreements should reconcile with the historical expenses on the operating statements. So all this information, or all this stuff that I'm mentioning, like vendor contracts and operating statements and rent rolls, they all have to tie in. It's all has to make sense. When you're doing numbers, when you're looking at stuff, it's like almost a puzzle, right? And as you study those years, the historical, right, operating statements, as you study that, and as you're looking out a rent roll, and you're looking at I mean, it all should fall into place. Repairs and maintenance. And this is the part where, you know, we have a lot of experience, and we knew we didn't want to have to go through the daily repairs and expenses. So we went in and we really did a lot of capital expenditure from the get-go. We went in and started remodeling. But you want to analyze repairs and maintenance expenses, and in details, you want to look at what kind of repairs are they doing, because when you're looking at repairs and maintenance expenses, you also have to take into consideration that if you see, I want to give you a perfect example. Let's say that you see a lot of coil repairs, right? Like in units, because that was one that we had. A lot of coil repairs, and to repair coils, it's not cheap. So things like that, you know, if you're going to buy a property that it's showing you that there's a lot of repairs in certain things, well, then be prepared to analyze and think, okay, I may need to either replace, right, the AC unit or a chiller or whatever it is that property has when I buy this property, if I want to eliminate some of those issues. Right? So that's something, so that's a big expense. If anyone's familiar with the price of a chiller, and it can run $40,000 to $50,000. Okay. So analyzing repairs and maintenances is very important. You want to make sure that the seller explains those one-time large expenses, right, that they're doing, and probably by doing those large, I lost my train of thought here, but by doing those large repairs, you eliminate having to do small, non-recurring work to a property. Make sense? Which ends up costing you guys money, because if you're sending someone out to fix a small problem, you now have to fix that problem, and you now have labor, and it adds up. It adds up. And if you have 20 units, 30 units, 40 units, I mean, that's a lot of money. Okay. Now, in a value add transaction where there's capital expenditures, which is exactly what I did, and it's already planned, then it's justifiable to reduce some of those repairs and maintenance expenses, because you're not going to have to worry about it. So let's say that I went in and I replaced the roofs because I saw a lot of leaks inside the units, right? So I went in, I spent $30,000, repaired the roof. Okay, great. Now, the report may say that, you know what, they were going in there and they were patching up leaks. So I can remove that repair that's showing on the operating expense. I can remove those repairs, because if I go in and I'm replacing the roof, I'm no longer going to have to worry about that. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. Now, if you and here you go, and if you replace sidewalks, boilers, roofs, right, the cost of maintaining them will be minimal during and after the work is completed, until it's until it wears off, like wear and tear again. And that could be years before that happens. We went in, we had to put brand new roof. We did buy a chiller. We went in there and we renovated about, I would say, 80% of the 80% of the units were renovated completely. So anybody coming in, or let's say that, somebody buys the property, well, they don't have to do repairs or rehabs on unless they want to take it to another level, right? Maybe they want to go a little more luxury. And again, they've got to do the market research to make sure that in that area, they can get that additional rent, right? For that maybe a little more upgraded than where it's at right now. So essential number 5 is you want to look at the payroll, right? If you're buying multifamily and you're not going to manage it yourself. This is assuming you're going to hire someone that's going to manage this for you, right? You want to look at that property's payroll. So some owners prefer to do a lot of the maintenance in-house as opposed to contracting with outside vendors. So it's very important. You want to understand that relationship between your payroll and those other expenses such as repairs and maintenance, turnover expenses, and ground maintenance. And what this means really is that sometimes you can have someone that's on staff, right, on your payroll that can actually take care of some of the stuff. So it's important because you're really not, if you're paying someone a salary, but you have them go repair something that if you had to hire someone to go do that would cost you maybe, let's say, $100, but you're not paying that because this person's on payroll and they happen to know how to do it. Well, that's not accurate for you, right? Because if you come in and you purchase this property and you don't use payroll, and let's say, or you do use payroll, you have to know the relationship between what that payroll person does and what they're getting paid for and any extra stuff that's being done by them. Okay, does that make sense? So obviously the more payroll, right? The lower the expenses on maintenance or things that need to be done, because pretty much every employee on payroll, you know exactly what it is that they're going to be doing. Higher payroll means you have more people working for you, right? And it justifies a lower management fee as well. So if you have hired people to work for you on that property, then what the management company will do will probably be less, because these other people on payroll can take care of a lot of the stuff that that management company can do. Okay, you guys good there? All right. Let's go to number 6. So number 6 is turnover, okay? And turnover is very important when you're analyzing your operating expenses. And I mean, when a property has an owner that's not systematically renovating the apartment's interiors, this is an expense that you're going to have to consider. I mean, it's a turn, right? It's what they're called make-ready expense, however you want to look at it. And this is basically when a tenant leaves, the land or the owner now has to send someone in to clean, possibly repaint and do some minor repairs, right? When you have property that's already been improved, a lot of times you don't have to spend the money on these make-readies because the properties have already kind of been redone. You have a good tenant in there. You may just need to clean it up and ready to go for the next tenant. So it really depends on the landlord and the kind of work and how he's maintaining his property. Okay, and so you want to include turnover make-readies. You want to make sure that those are included in the operating expense. and that they don't move them over to a capital expenditure, because if they move it to capital expenditure, it reflects as it's a one-time expense. You're not going to have to do that again. And that's not the case. You want to make sure that it's part of the operating expense, because if they're vacating, if tenants are vacating and that particular landlord or owner is having to go in and constantly doing make readies, well, that's not a capital expenditure. That's an operating expense. Do you guys understand that difference there? Very important. One of these expenses is capital improvement, and the other is operating expenses. And operating expenses is added into as part of the cost of doing business. Capital improvements is a one-time investment that you make on this property. And it's not split up, or it's not taken like as operating expenses. So it makes a big difference when you're gonna purchase a property.
Hey, Annabelle,
Yeah.
my Home Depot background's firing off right now. Where is the line? Because I ran the pro sales desk and we worked with property management all the time. Where's the fine line between just a turn and a capital? Like, if you're just replacing a faucet, probably not capital. But if the property comes up with a plan that when people pop over, they're now getting the new upgraded faucets at the turn, would that be a capital expense, or would that still be the turn?
Well,
I mean, you see what I'm saying? Because it's more than just what, it's more than just
how many are they
a coat
buying?
of paint and carpeting per unit.
Are they just putting a faucet in?
Yeah.
So they're buying what? If so, how
Like
many?
one and two off, but they're replacing all the faucets within a year, kind of thing.
I don't have an answer for you on that, because I don't know. I don't know if that qualifies for a capital expenditure if they're just doing faucets. My experience is, and maybe if someone in this group knows, my experience has been that like this is a one time for like, you're going to go in there, do this big thing now, and you won't have to do this for a while, right?
Yeah.
But we're talking something large. I don't know, maybe if they replaced a faucet in every single unit, or a couple.
I just used faucet as a simple thing. Maybe it's like the bath vanity and the toilet and the shower enclosure all
exactly. Those are capital expenditures. Yes. I went in there and it was bathroom remodel, new cabinets in the bathroom, in the kitchen, new sinks, new faucets, new electrical, like new lighting, new flooring, everything. It was like the units were gutted completely, and we put in, everything was brand new. So I think that's what we consider a capital expenditure. Not just, I'm sorry, let me go back here. Not just like a small fix. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So let's look here. So you want to calculate the average cost per unit by taking that annual expense, and you want to divide it by the number of tenants that moved in that year. That's how you calculate that. Okay. You ask for numbers of move-ins. So, and this is important. You ask for number of move-ins over the past 3 years. Right? And move-ins are how many people have moved in, right, in the past 3 years. So then here's what you can do. The number of move-ins is divided by the total number of units, and that equals the annual turnover percentage. So this is very important, because this is going to give you a very good idea of the type of turnover that this property has. And if there's a lot of turnover, right, it might be the condition, right? They're not taking care of it properly. And so this will allow you to, when you're analyzing, it'll allow you to think, okay, wait a minute. Maybe if I fix, right, all these units, my turnover isn't going to be as high as it is right now. Does that make sense? This is important. This is really important for you guys to look at when you're analyzing these deals. Okay, and
It is.
Yes.
I know I have a lot of questions today. The
No.
question comes in, distinguishing between security deposit and calculating the expenses for turnover.
Security deposits is in its own category.
Okay.
That's not, yeah, because if a tenant has given a security deposit, that security deposit rolls over to the new owner for that particular tenant. So you don't use, you're not going to factor that in.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, I was just looking at turnovers and expense that you calculate versus, because the security deposits, hopefully it's used when you're making, one tenant moves out, and if there's any damages that you in turn have to use that security deposit to pay for.
For any damages.
Yes.
Okay. But wait, what was your question?
So you distinguish between security deposit and what you calculate for turnovers. In other words, when you're looking at the move in and move outs, you basically have a different figure.
So you're going to use when you move out, or your move-ins or your move-outs. So if you want to, okay, so if
Yes.
so if we really want to look at turnover percentage, your move-in, you're going to take your move-ins and divide that by the unit number. Okay, and your move-ins has nothing to do with your security deposits or any of that money. We're only determining turnover percentage. And turnover percentage is figured out by the amount of move-ins you've had divided by the number of units. It has nothing to do with, we're not taking into consideration or factoring in the security deposit. This is just like a short formula to determine turnover percentage.
Okay. Got you.
Yeah, got it?
Yes.
Because I think you're figuring, you're trying to add the security deposit in there, but we're not trying to add or subtract or doing, all we're trying to figure out is the turnover. If the property you're buying has a high turnover, we want to know what that percentage is.
Got you.
Just
Okay.
it's figured out by the amount of move-ins that have occurred divided by the number of units.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I know we're running a little late, but you know what? I'll just kind of run through these really quick. Let me just kind of, so really in addition to these 6 essentials that I've kind of gone through, keep in mind there's a few other expenses that you want to consider. And you really want to study those fixed expenses. And those fixed expenses are taxes, insurance, right? Certain utilities can be the same, but taxes and insurance, and there's probably some others that I didn't list here. Those are pretty fixed. You want to look at your tax bills. You want to investigate the risk of reassessment. Very important, right? Because if your tax bill has, if there's a risk for it to be reassessed, then now we're talking additional expense that you have to add to this property. You want to visit the assessor's website. You want to call the assessor. You want to just find out. You're right. You want to make sure that you're on top of things. Just make sure that you don't miss anything. There's aren't additional like late fees or any of that stuff that you incur. And in a sale transaction, I mean, there may be risk of sales price driving up the assessed value. Okay, that's for sure.
I've got a question on that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you know, when large institutional investors come in and they buy portfolios, are they purchasing individual properties? Are they buying like the LLC or the joint venture? Are they purchasing an entity that owns the property? And are they avoiding reassessment by doing that and avoiding transfer taxes as well? They're buying an entity versus real estate?
I don't have a complete answer to that, but I can tell you they're not avoiding anything. There's no way to avoid any of this stuff or taxes when you're selling.
There is, and I'm not being argumentative, but I went to an attorney when I purchased a building in foreclosure because I didn't have the money to make up the delinquency of the building. This is before it went actually to the sale. And I highly recommended this to anybody that's concerned, you know, or interested in purchasing a distressed sale. But let me share really quick. I went to an attorney, and what he did is he structured a new entity, an LLC, and the owner of the building that was in distress, that they were losing it, it was in foreclosure. It was on a private note. There was no due on sale clause on the private note. So that was an important ingredient of the whole thing. The attorney prepared a new LLC whereby the original owner had a 51% share and I had a 49% share. And that property, it was agreed between me, the buyer, and the seller in distress that he would transfer his property to this new LLC entity. Upon transfer, I had a stock transfer agreement that I would immediately go in and file. Or actually, you know what? I didn't have to file it. It wasn't a matter of record. The LLC clearly showed at the state that he was on, you know, as an officer and an entity owner or whatever. And it clearly had me on there as well. But nobody at the state level could tell who owned what. The 2%, what happened after closing, at closing, at closing. Yeah. So I made up the tax deficiency. You know, we're talking $30,000, $40,000 in back taxes and payments that I had to make. Then he had to sign at escrow before I did that. So he transferred at escrow, and at escrow, they made the payments up. I'm really sorry the way I'm explaining this, but it's kind of confusing. So at that point, 2% of that corporation went to me. Now I had 51 and he had 49. So this all happened within a couple of weeks of each other. Then there was a second agreement that he had to sign at closing where his remaining 49% could be purchased by me for $1. Now, when we transferred that corporation, the tax assessor had a lot of questions, but it was obvious that he had deeded his interest to the corporation, and a non-majority transfer happened where I became a minority partner. So there was no transfer tax triggered. And because in the state where this happened to be Washington State, because we waited a year and a day for the remaining interest of him to be transferred, then that too qualified for an abeyance or an avoidance of transfer tax. So it worked and it was valid. And but trying to find a seller who's willing to go through that with you, probably nearly impossible.
And I think that, you know, on a one deal situation, that's probably a little bit more doable. But if you're buying a portfolio of properties, I don't know. I don't see how that can be done.
Unless it was a complicated joint venture structure, but
exactly. But again, the seller would have to be willing. You know, there has to be a relationship before anyone would just blindly do that. I think it's tough. I really think it's a tough one.
I think a lot of investors skip over the reassessment thing because a lot of times when you're buying something that hasn't been updated and assessed for a few years, especially with the rocketing valuations we've been seeing, a lot of people don't put that in their pro forma. You know, in year 2 or 3, they reassess the building, and that could mean another $10,000-$20,000 out of your pocket every year.
Well, I mean, I'll share with you that in Texas, it's not like here in California. When you sell a property, we know what the purchase price was of that property. Not in Texas, it's not recorded.
Wow. Aren't you paying a transfer tax?
Honestly, I don't know. I have to look at the papers.
Usually there's some kind of a fee or tax based upon the valuation, and
I'm sure I did, but they do not have any access to what that purchase price was. I've gotten in the mail from the assessor's office, like, hey, would you fill this out? Tell us like how much you sold the property for, blah, 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 blah. But they don't know.
Interesting.
You could search and you'll find like zero. They don't put a value on there. But anyway, I mean, I don't know if I gave you an answer or not. I'm
I
sure.
just wanted to comment. Yeah, on the
know,
reassessment. A very valid point you're making. And I just wanted to comment on that whole thing. And by transferring in that manner, if you're connected tightly with the seller and you can get them to agree to that kind of a scheme, it's a valid legal scheme, and it also prevented the property from being reassessed or triggered for a reassessment based upon the transfer. So I just wanted to point it out. Just an idea.
No, great. Thank you so much. I think that's wonderful. I'm gonna end this here. There's a couple of questions, or there's some comments here that I want to read. Let's see here. Kevin. So Kevin would like to connect to serve anyone on this call with title and escrow on investment properties nationally. Oh, that's good. I can help you find off-market deals, provide you with free access to our Title Pro system. And there's the website. Simply use first name, last name as a token for a new account. Call anytime for smooth, fast closing. Perfect. Kevin, I don't know if you heard, but we're having an event in Diamond Bar Friday. The link, Jess, did you put the link on here? Yes. The link is there at the top, Kevin, if you'd like to attend. We're done. We're full with sponsorships, but we are doing another event May. If you'd like to join us as a sponsor, or if you'd like to attend, you can, but you'd have to bring a real estate agent with you to the event.
I can't see the link, but if you could either repost it, yeah, I'd like to attend.
Let me send that to you right now.
I think I joined your meeting a few minutes late, so it won't show it.
Oh,
There it
There's a
is.
link
Okay.
up.
Thank you.
got it? You put it up there?
I see it. Yep.
Thanks, Sean. You're so good. Thank you. I'm a
Link
little
is also
slow.
in the post-call email that has like the link to the recording. The link to the Diamond Bar event's also in there too today.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Let me see. There's a message here. Who's this message from? I can't tell. I'm not an agent or a broker, which says to attend your Diamond Bar meeting. Who was that? I'm sorry. I can't see who that came from. Do you see, do you guys see who that is? Because for some reason I can't see it on my.
No, they private messaged you. They might have left the call.
Oh, it's Dolores. Dolores, don't worry. Come. You know me. So yeah, make sure you register because it is limited. And we want to make sure everyone gets a seat in there. So absolutely. Just register and we'll be good. All right, I am going to let me stop sharing this. If there's any other last minute questions, I know I went way over today's call, but you know what? It was a good call. It was, informative. I love the interaction. And if there is anything you guys need, anything I can do to help, please reach out to me. I'm here to help. I'm here to grow my knowledge, grow my business, and I want to do it with as many people as I possibly can. So no other questions. I will see those of you that are here in California, LA area, come by the event. And if not, see you guys next week.
Yes, we made up for you missing us for the last couple of weeks.
There
or so.
you go. Oh my gosh. And I didn't even tell you guys about Grant Cardone event, but forget it. That's like another whole hour. We'll talk about it. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Bye. Let me make sure.